On New Year's Eve, an ancient tradition is repeated in thousands of homes around the world, eating 12 grapes as the bells chime. But did you know that this custom holds a hidden power far greater than you might imagine? In 2025, the 12 grapes ritual can become more than just a simple tradition. It can be the key that opens the doors to prosperity and abundance. Based on ancient Buddhist wisdom, this act can not only attract good luck, but also transform your financial destiny. We invite you to discover the deep secrets that few know about this ritual and how, by practicing it with intention and awareness, you can attract great wealth in the coming year. Get ready for a unique experience that blends tradition with spirituality to manifest a life full of prosperity. Imagine for a moment Manjari, a woman with hard-working and tired hands, her hair now painted silver, a testament to the years she has dedicated to caring for her loved ones. But this particular year feels heavier than the others. It's the end of December, and while many celebrate and eagerly plan for the new year, Manjari looks at the little money left in her wallet with concern. The bills seem to multiply, the expenses never cease, and in her heart a small voice whispers, "What did I do wrong to get here?" Every day of her life starts the same, very early before the sun rises. Manjari prepares her coffee and cleans her small house, but she doesn't do it with joy. She does it almost out of habit because deep inside she feels that something is missing, something beyond money. With each sweep of the floor, her thoughts fill with doubts. How will I pay the bills? What will next year be like? Will it be the same as this one? Manjari doesn't say this aloud, but there is something that deeply unsettles her, the feeling that time is slipping away, and with it, the opportunity to find the peace she longs for. My friend, have you ever felt the same? That feeling that something in your life needs to change, but you don't know where to begin? That's how Manjari felt, trapped between the weight of the past and the fear of the future. However, what she didn't know is that sometimes the darkest moments are the prelude to a great transformation, and Manjari was about to discover it. But for that transformation to happen, she first had to hear the call of something new. A simple yet purposeful ritual was about to cross her path and change everything. One cold afternoon in December, as the sun began to set, Manjari went to the market. She wanted to buy what was needed for New Year's dinner, though this year it would be more modest than ever. She walked slowly among the stalls filled with fruit, spices, and lights that seemed to dance with the breeze. It was then that she heard a familiar voice. It was Don Julian, an old family friend. With his ever-present smile and worn hat, he seemed to be engaged in an animated conversation with the fruit seller. "Don't forget the 12 grapes, but don't just eat them as they are. If you perform the ritual properly, you could change your luck," he said. Manjari, who was walking nearby, couldn't help but stop. Something in those words resonated within her. A ritual? Change my luck? It was as if the universe had given her a wink. Don Julian looked at her with a mixture of surprise and complicity as she approached. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "Ah, Manjari, it's a ritual few know about, but trust me, it works. I learned it from an old sage years ago when I was going through tough times myself. It's not just about eating 12 grapes. There's a purpose behind each one." Intrigued, Manjari wanted to know more. "And what exactly do you do? How can something so simple change your luck?" Don Julian leaned toward her as if he were about to share a valuable secret. "It's not just about eating them, my friend. Each grape represents a wish, but for it to work, you must prepare yourself. You must do it with faith and above all with gratitude. That's the key." His words hung in the air like a seed finding fertile ground. For the first time in a long while, Manjari felt a spark of hope. It was small, yes, but enough to light up a dark corner of her heart. "And if this ritual is what I need," she thought. There was something in Don Julian's words she couldn't ignore. And so my friend Manjari began to open herself to the idea that maybe her destiny wasn't as out of her control as she had thought. But this was just the beginning. For the ritual to work, Manjari would have to take the next step, learn how to do it correctly, and above all, believe in its power. That night, back in her small home, Manjari sat by the window looking out at the lights of the neighborhood. The conversation with Don Julian lingered in her mind, but with it, doubts also arose. A ritual? She thought to herself while her hands played with a hot cup of tea. How could 12 simple grapes change my luck? That sounds like a superstition, and I don't believe in those things. Manjari had spent her entire life facing problems with hard work and perseverance. To her, magical solutions didn't exist. She had learned not to expect miracles, but to accept what life gave her. Maybe Don Julian just wants to cheer me up, but what if it's nothing more than a fantasy? She fell silent for a moment as doubts continued to grow. What would my family say if they knew I was thinking about this? They'd surely laugh at me. Besides, what difference could a ritual make? Manjari was caught between her desire for hope and her fear of being disappointed again. Because, my friend, when we've been facing difficulties for a long time, it's easy to let skepticism become a shield that protects us from pain, but it also distances us from new possibilities. For a moment she thought about forgetting the whole thing, abandoning the ritual, and just moving on as always. However, deep down in her heart, something small, almost imperceptible, refused to disappear, the possibility that this time things could be different. Manjari's doubts were nothing more than a reflection of what we all face at some point. The moment when uncertainty stops us, just when we're on the verge of something new. And so, with her heart divided, Manjari decided to wait, not knowing that her story was just beginning. The day dawned with a different air. Although the sun was shining weakly through the clouds, Manjari felt something in the atmosphere that she couldn't explain. That morning, she decided to return to the market. She wasn't going with the intention of looking for answers, but rather to distract herself a little from her thoughts. The hustle and bustle of the market was at its peak, voices of vendors announcing their goods, the crunching of feet on the stone pavement, and the aroma of fresh fruits and spices floating in the air. Manjari walked slowly, observing the colours and the movement around her. It was then that she saw him, near a grape stand, an elderly monk sitting on a small wooden bench. He wore a saffron-coloured robe that seemed to radiate its own light. His face, marked with wrinkles, conveyed a serenity that contrasted with the hustle and bustle of the market. In his hands he held a small bell that rang with every movement, as if marking the rhythm of time. Manjari felt an immediate attraction to him, as if something beyond her understanding was pushing her to approach. "Good morning," the elderly man said with a soft voice before Manjari could say anything. "You seem to have many questions in your heart." Manjari stood frozen. How could he know? She barely knew him. But there was something about his presence that inspired trust, as if she were in front of someone who could see beyond the obvious. "Maybe," she responded with a shy smile, "but I don't think the answers are here." The elderly man looked at her intently, as if reading the pages of an invisible book. Then he pointed to the grapes. "Did you know that grapes are not just fruits? They are symbols of abundance, of transformation, and if you use them with intention, they can be a key to open doors that are currently closed." "Intention?" Manjari frowned. "I've heard of a ritual with grapes, but it's hard to believe something so simple could change my life." The monk smiled patiently, as if he were used to such doubts. "It's normal to distrust what we don't understand," he said, "but allow me to explain something. The ritual of the 12 grapes is not a trick or a superstition. It is a practice that connects your energy with the universe's energy. Each grape represents a wish, but it's not enough just to wish. You must believe, you must give thanks, and you must vibrate in harmony with what you ask for." Intrigued, Manjari sat down on a nearby bench. "How does it work?" she asked, almost unaware that she was already open to listening. "The grape ritual is a ceremony of alignment," explained the monk. "Each grape represents a month of the year ahead. When you eat them, you pause and reflect on what you want to manifest in that month. But here's the secret. You don't ask from a place of scarcity, but from gratitude, as if you've already received it. The monk paused, letting his words sink into Manjari's heart before continuing. The universe responds to the vibration of your thoughts. If you ask with fear or doubt, you will receive more of the same. But if you ask with faith and gratitude, you are sowing seeds of abundance. Manjari listened attentively, almost hypnotized by his words. She had never thought of the ritual in this way. For her, it had always been something mechanical, without deep meaning. What happens if I'm afraid to ask for something big? She asked, revealing her insecurities. The monk smiled as if he had been expecting this question. Fear is a teacher, not an enemy, he said calmly. But you must not let it stop you. When you ask, don't focus on the size of the desire, but on the intention behind it. There are no small desires, only those that align with your purpose. For the first time in a long while, Manjari felt something within her unlock. The old man's words spoke of more than just a ritual. They spoke of something much greater, a way of living, of connecting with life and with oneself. Before they parted ways, the monk handed Manjari a small piece of paper on which he had written a mantra. Recite this mantra. It will help calm your mind and open your heart. Manjari took it carefully as if it were a treasure. Thank you, she said in a barely audible voice. The monk nodded and with one last smile returned to his meditation. Manjari, with the paper in her hands and the monk's words in her heart, felt that something had changed. She was no longer the same woman who had arrived at the market that morning. My friend, we all have a moment in life when we find a mentor, someone whose simple but profound words open our eyes to new possibilities. For Manjari, this elderly monk became that guide. Now, with a new perspective, she was ready to face the next step of her journey. Manjari returned home with a heart divided. On one hand, the conversation with the monk had sparked a glimmer of hope in her. On the other, she couldn't avoid the doubts still lingering in her mind. But something inside her, small but powerful, told her she had to try. That afternoon, with the sun beginning to set, Manjari sat down to make a list of what she would need for the ritual. It was a special moment, an act of faith, and she wanted to do it right. Fresh grapes, she murmured to herself as she wrote, a white candle and a piece of paper to write my intentions. Each word she wrote on that list made her feel a little more committed, as if she were drawing a map toward an unknown destination. The next day, Manjari returned to the market. This time her eyes carefully searched for the perfect grapes, round, juicy, full of life. As she picked them, she overheard the comments of other buyers, some looking at her choice with curiosity. "Why so many grapes?" a woman asked. "It's for something special," Manjari replied with a shy smile, offering no further details. On her way home, she bought a white candle, symbolizing purity and clarity. Then, at her desk, she carefully placed a piece of paper and a pencil. She was ready, or so she thought. But not everyone shared her enthusiasm. When she mentioned the ritual in a casual conversation with some acquaintances, the reactions came quickly. "A ritual with grapes? That's nonsense," one exclaimed, laughing. "Manjari, you should spend your time on more useful things," another added, mocking her. The words hit her like small needles. What if they're right? What if I'm wasting my time on something that won't work? For a moment, the doubts took over again. But then she remembered the monk's words. Don't let the opinions of others extinguish your faith. What matters is not what they think, but what you believe. That night, with the grapes carefully washed, the candle placed in the centre of her table, and the paper in front of her, Manjari took a deep breath. She was aware that the criticisms and doubts wouldn't disappear easily, but she knew she couldn't let them stop her. As she lit the candle, her thoughts focused on the purpose of the ritual. With each little flame that grew, she felt her intention strengthen. This isn't just a ritual, she thought. It's a promise I'm making to myself, a promise to believe, to try, to change. Dear friend, how many times have we let fear hold us back? The truth is, there will always be external voices that try to extinguish our light, but the path to change requires courage, and sometimes that first step isn't big or perfect. It's simply an act of faith. Manjari had passed her first test. She had gathered what was needed, faced the criticism, and most importantly, had decided to move forward. Now, with the candle lit and the grapes ready, she was one step away from discovering what the ritual really meant. The New Year's Eve night had arrived. Manjari had spent the entire day preparing her home. Every corner seemed cleaner, more orderly, as if inviting something new into her life. But the real magic, she knew, would happen in the hours that followed. As the clock neared midnight, Manjari sat at the table where she had arranged the ritual's elements: the 12 grapes, the lit white candle, and the paper with her intentions carefully written. The atmosphere was full of calm, but also a silent expectancy. It was a unique moment where hope felt stronger than doubt. Manjari closed her eyes, remembering the monk's instructions before starting. Clear your mind and open your heart. This is not just a ritual to attract material things. It is an act of connection with yourself and with the universe. Each grape I eat will be a promise, a door to something better. With a deep breath, Manjari took the first grape. As she ate it, she thought of something she wanted to leave behind, the fear that had accompanied her for so many months. With each bite, she felt as if she were releasing a weight, making space for something new. The second grape was different. With it, Manjari whispered, "I hope for abundance, but not just in material things. I wish for peace in my heart." And so she continued, grape by grape, making wishes that went beyond money, wishes for love, for health for those she loved, for strength to overcome any obstacle. By the 7th grape, a silent tear rolled down her cheek. It wasn't sadness, but something deeper, a mix of gratitude and hope. By the time she reached the 12th grape, Manjari felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a lightness in her soul, as if she had finally let go of something that had kept her bound. In that moment, with the candle still burning, she took the paper where she had written her intentions and held it close to the flame, letting the fire carry them to the universe. The monk had told her that fire symbolizes transformation, and as the words on the paper turned to ashes, Manjari felt that something within her was also transforming. That night, as fireworks lit up the sky, Manjari didn't think about the mockery she had heard, or the doubts that had haunted her. Instead, she felt full of gratitude for the monk who had shown her the way, for the ritual that had given her hope, and most of all, for herself, for having had the courage to try. And though she didn't know what the future would bring, that night, for the first time in a long time, Manjari allowed herself to believe that anything was possible. Dear friend, how many times have we forgotten the power of a simple act of faith? Sometimes it's not about the ritual itself, but about the intention, the moment when you decide to believe not in the magic, but in your own ability to create something new. Manjari had crossed a threshold. She had done more than a ritual. She had made a commitment to herself, to her future, to hope. And that night, as she blew out the candle, she knew that something in her life had changed forever. The next day after the ritual, Manjari woke up with a mixture of emotions. On one hand, there was the calm she had felt when closing her eyes in front of the candle, a sense that she had done something meaningful. But on the other hand, doubts began to appear like shadows in her mind. What if nothing changes, she thought as she prepared her morning coffee. What if it was just a waste of time? Each day that passed without clear signs of change fueled these thoughts. Manjari began to question herself, as if the ritual were a fragile bridge built over an abyss of uncertainty. The words of those who had ridiculed her efforts echoed in her mind, striking her like a distant echo. But then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, while walking through the park, she ran into Clara, an old neighbour. As they chatted, Manjari almost impulsively mentioned the ritual she had done. To her surprise, Clara smiled knowingly. "I've done it too," she confessed. "It's not always easy to have faith, But sometimes what's most important is not what happens outside, but what changes within you. Clara wasn't the only one. Slowly, Manjari noticed that there were other people in her community who had also done the 12 grape ritual. Though each had experienced it differently, they all agreed on one thing. It wasn't an act to get immediate results, but a way to open the heart to new possibilities. These people began to become allies in Manjari's journey. They gathered occasionally to share their experiences, doubts, and most importantly, their small triumphs. "You know," said an older man during one of these meetings, "after doing the ritual, I didn't find a sack of money at my door, but I did get an idea for a business I had never considered before." Another woman added, "For me, it was as if the energy of my house changed. Things that once seemed impossible began to flow little by little." Manjari felt comforted. She was no longer alone on her path. These new friends not only understood her, but also inspired her to keep going. Their stories reminded her that change isn't always immediate, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening, and however the challenges continued. There were days when Manjari felt frustrated, days when she looked at her accounts or the difficulties she was still facing and wondered if it had all been in vain. But in those moments she remembered the monk's words. "It's like a seed. You can't see how it grows beneath the earth, but if you care for it with patience and faith, one day it will bloom." With that thought in mind, Manjari began to treat each day as an opportunity to water that seed. She changed the way she spoke to herself, replacing doubt with words of encouragement. And although the challenges were still there, she no longer felt defeated by them. Dear friend, we all face challenges in our journey, where it seems easier to give up than to keep going. But it's in those moments that we find allies, those souls who remind us that we're not alone. And although doubts may be our most persistent enemies, they also teach us to trust, not in immediate results, but in the process. Manjari learned that true transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey full of trials, allies, and yes, enemies. But every step she took, every day she chose to believe, brought her a little closer to the change she longed for. The days turned into weeks, and Manjari began to notice something different. It wasn't a sudden change, as if a lightning bolt had struck the sky, but something more subtle, almost like a sunrise slowly lighting the horizon. It all began with a simple message on her phone. An old colleague from work, someone she hadn't spoken to in years, wrote to invite her to participate in a work project. It was an opportunity Manjari had never considered, but it seemed designed especially for her. "Could you help me with this idea?" the message read. Manjari didn't think twice before accepting. It wasn't a great fortune, but it was an opportunity, one door opening when all others seemed closed. At home, things also began to change. The small conflicts that used to arise frequently, like disagreements over everyday matters, seemed to fade away. The atmosphere became more harmonious, as if the ritual had cleansed not just her energy but also that of her home. Even the plants in her garden, which had once seemed to wither, were now full of life. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but to Manjari it was a reminder that when you take care of your surroundings, they take care of you too. What mattered most wasn't the external opportunities but the change that had occurred inside her. Manjari began to see prosperity from a different perspective. It wasn't just about money or material things, but about a sense of abundance that came from her own attitude. She started to appreciate the small things, the hot coffee in the mornings, a conversation with her daughter, or even the simple fact of waking up each day with a new possibility. Gratitude, she remembered the monk's words, is the key that opens the door to prosperity. And he was right. Now, every time she lit a candle or wrote her intentions on paper, she did so with more clarity, more purpose. The actions that once seemed like a simple ritual were now full of meaning. Dear friend, the change we long for often begins within us. Manjari didn't just perform a ritual, she began a process of transformation. She understood that true prosperity doesn't come with a stroke of luck. but as a result of opening our hearts and minds to new possibilities. And the more we appreciate what we already have, the more space we create to receive what's to come. With every step she took, Manjari learned something essential. Life is full of hidden opportunities, waiting to be discovered by those who have the faith, gratitude, and courage to seek them. The 12 grape ritual was only the beginning of her journey toward a fuller and more prosperous life. As the months passed, Manjari came to a profound realization. Her transformation had not only changed her, but it also held the potential to spark change in others. The journey she had undergone, from doubt to renewed faith, was something worth sharing. So one day, during a reunion with old friends, Manjari decided to speak, not with the intention of teaching, but to simply share what she had learned. As the warm light of the setting sun bathed the room, she began to recount her story, how she had discovered the 12 grape ritual, the moments of uncertainty, and how she had ultimately experienced a real shift in her life. "It wasn't just the ritual that changed my life," she said, her voice steady and calm. "It was the intention I put into it, the faith I regained in myself, and the act of allowing the universe to help me. If I could do it, I'm sure you can too." Her words struck a deep chord with her friends, who were moved by her honesty and vulnerability. From that moment on, Manjari became a source of inspiration to those around her. She realized that the true essence of transformation is not only to create change for oneself, but to share that light with others. She began hosting small meditation circles and groups where people could openly discuss their dreams, struggles, and how spiritual practices like the 12 grape ritual had helped them move forward. Little by little, Manjari gained a reputation for her quiet wisdom and her ability to guide others on their paths. She was no longer just a woman who had found prosperity. She had become someone who shared the power of intention and energy with her community. She came to understand that the 12 grape ritual didn't just bring abundance into her life, it transformed the way she viewed the world. A world full of possibilities ready to be embraced. Dear friend, Manjari's journey mirrors our own. We all possess the power to transform our lives, no matter how challenging our circumstances may seem. There is always a way to connect with our own energy and create space for change. But the true magic of this process lies not just in what we receive, but in what we give. Sharing our light, our experiences, and our wisdom with others is what fills our hearts and creates a network of support and collective transformation. Just as Manjari found the courage to share her story, you too can be the inspiration someone else needs. The more we give, the more we grow, and in helping others find their way, we find our own. As we've seen throughout this journey, the 12 grape ritual is more than a symbolic act. It is a powerful practice that, when done with faith and gratitude, has the ability to shift our energy and open doors to new opportunities. What Manjari learned, and what you too can now understand, is that true prosperity begins within you. If this video has inspired you and you want to continue learning how Buddhist teachings can transform your life, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell so you never miss any of our future practical teachings and rituals designed to help you find peace, prosperity, and well-being in every aspect of your life.